Hey, what's up everybody? This is moonblazewolf. I'm re-recording my Black Eagles playthrough with commentary here. And we're getting underway with the prologue battle.
It is now come.
We have to do female Byleth in the Black Eagles route so that we can recruit Sylvain as our dancer.
I see.
I'm gonna try to talk through some of the things that I do in this run that are of consequence, so that maybe people can get a little bit better understanding of the mechanics that go into the run.
Hey.
One thing about this run that I'll just quickly mention, I was being very safe with regards to building my Edelgard support, because I knew as long as I had a good run, that was a competent run, it was going to be a new PB for me, and I was really just kind of focused on finishing it. So the Edelgard support is not optimized to the point that I would like it, but other than that, a lot of the strats that are shown off in this battle are pretty well optimized, or in this run are pretty well optimized. So for the prologue battle here, this is the same in all three runs. We're just gonna quickly and efficiently make our way up to the boss here and take him out. Very, very safe. So as I gain my first level here, like with all of the runs, or all of the normal routes, I'm looking for strength and speed as my main stats, so I'm always very happy whenever I see strength and speed. Experience in the Black Eagles route is not super tight, so we don't have a benchmark that's like go no go like we do in Golden Deer. That's really the only one that like has a hard Byleth experience goal where you have to route the XP really tightly. The other two routes, this one and Blue Lions, you can be a little bit less concerned about hitting every single level at the exact, time that you need it. You can just kind of accumulate the XP as you're going along. So ideally you still want to hit level 5 during chapter 1, which is what's coming up here after we choose our house and do some more cutscenes.
Of course. I just that once. May I ask a favor of you?
Zooming in the camera when you're in the monastery does reduce lag, so that's why I'll typically be doing that. There's also some folks, runners of this game, who are proponents of pointing the camera at the floor, and this will further reduce lag. I personally don't do that, just because I'm not quite to the point yet where I feel comfortable just using the minimap to run, because obviously if you're looking at the ground you can't see anything that's in front of you. It doesn't save enough time for me at this point to consider it an essential skill of speedrunning this game, but it definitely does save a little bit of time if you are comfortable doing it. Alright, so now we've picked the Black Eagles house, and we are ready to proceed towards the first chapter battle of the game, which is the chapter 1 battle. This is the only battle in the game where we don't have access to the Divine Pulse mechanic. So if we do lose either Edelgard or our Byleth character in this chapter 1 battle, it is a game over. So we have the fight routed pretty tightly to keep them safe, but also get as much XP on Byleth as we can and finishing the fight as efficiently as we can. So it's like a pretty delicate balance. I would say there's probably more I suspect there's quite a bit of work that has gone into the chapter 1 battle, so we have a quick little explore here where we just have to go talk to Edelgard. And now we're on to that chapter 1 battle. We're also going to use this opportunity to farm our first social point with Edelgard there in the cutscene beforehand. We need to get Edelgard to a rank of C+ by chapter 11, or else we will not be able to continue along the Black Eagles route. So you'll see some of that in the cutscenes where we are gaining those social points, and we'll also use some of our trips to the monastery to also farm those social points with gifts and lost items and things like that. So we got our first combat here after charging our enemy units forward the first turn. Ferdinand von Eyre gets a nice kill there. If we do some damage and then auto battle again, we'll take out those other first 2 units. And then from here, it's just sort of, we want to basically aggro the units in a particular order, while also keeping things as efficient as we can. So Byleth runs up here, aggro's Dedu, survives just fine, and then we take him out. And then we're going to keep moving our units up the battlefield, and then Byleth and Edelgard are going to take out Mercedes here for another kill and another level up on Byleth. Now the spacing here is pretty important because we're going to finish taking out Dimitri, and then we immediately want to aggro Claude to come over as well. We're going to use Edelgard to do that because she has full health. If you saw that red line there, that's your indication that you're going to aggro that next unit. So we kind of drew them over here, and now we're going to take Claude out this turn with Byleth. We always want to do the killing blow with Byleth if at all possible, because that will get her the maximum experience. But from here on out, it's just kind of cleaning up these last couple units. And also keeping Edelgard safe, so. I moved Ferdinand up there, by the way, because I wanted Hilda to move towards him, so that way Byleth can kind of take her out on the way over here to Hanneman, who is the last unit. And we're done with the Chapter 1 battle. That went very smoothly. Coming up next, so Chapter 2 is the only chapter where we have a series of required actions that we have to take during the calendar portion of the game. It's kind of like the tutorial month, the first full month here. So the game is going to force us in the first week to do a explore, in the second week to do a practice battle, and then in the third week to do a seminar. So we do spend a bit of time here during Chapter 2, you know, learning all about the game and some of the different options that are available to us during the month when we are sort of between missions. But we're not going to utilize that a whole heck of a lot in any of the Fire Emblem speedruns that we do. We want to avoid the monastery as much as possible unless it's required, or we need to you know, like recruit a character or something to that effect. So
I have a request.
So this is my required explore. I'm going to use the opportunity to tag a couple zones so that I can fast travel to them later, as well as do the required quest, which is going to give Byleth her first battalion unit. Battalions are kind of like additional, theoretically it's like an army, but it gives you battle bonuses as well as a special ability. So we'll be using some of those units, and particularly certain special abilities, throughout the speedrun for various purposes. So we got the quest on there. We got our first battalion. We are going to get set up here to do our instructing for the first time. We start by setting Byleth to axe and heavy armor, and Lindhart to faith only. Edelgard is going to do axe the entire time, but we will switch off of heavy armor later in the run. We want her to learn the weight -3 ability, which will help with her attack speed.
Sorry,
And now we also get our first, sort of question and answer session with our students. Unfortunately, unfortunately for them, we always want to give them the worst advice because that will minimize the number of cutscenes and like the professor level ups that we will get throughout the course of the run. So it's actually faster to be the worst professor that we possibly can be during the run, which kind of pains me as a current and former teacher. So this is that practice battle. We're going to use it as an opportunity to farm experience for our Byleth. So we just sort of say goodbye to everybody else, and then Byleth is going to charge headlong into this battle and take on all comers. Thankfully, she is way more powerful than any of them, and by the end of this battle, she should be either level 9 or level 10. We also reclassed her to the Myrmidon class before this fight, earlier on in the chapter. This gives her slightly better chance of getting our preferred skill ups, which are strength and speed. We just hit level 9. We're getting a lot of strength already, which is what we really want to see. Strength basically equates to raw damage in the game. Speed is a little bit different. Speed it affects your ability to attack twice, as well as a few other things. But mainly it's that as far as damage output and DPS goes, if you have 4 greater strength than the opponent that you are engaging in combat, you will get an extra round of attack. Or in the case of gauntlets, which is going to be one of our preferred weapons for the first half of the run, you'll actually get 2 extra attacks, which is very nice. So
enlightening. Not a tool. Let's put this.
I'd never have. I've rested. I worked.
Okay, so now we're going to do a seminar with Manuela. Seminars are a way to boost specific skills. The game has a kind of an interesting system. So there's raw levels, which affect your stats, but then there's skills, which affect your abilities. So as you level up your skills, you will get access to greater and greater abilities in that skill tree. And Faith is sort of the healing and support magic skill tree. The specific ability that we are looking for in the Faith skill tree, which we will use later on throughout the run, is the Warp spell. So, okay, and then this is the actual Chapter 2 story battle. We, unfortunately, are going to be saying goodbye to all of our students except for Lindhart and Edelgard, so hopefully people are not fans of theirs if they are watching. We know that they are. I'm fans of some of them, unfortunately, as well, so it kind of pains me to say goodbye to Petra and Bernadetta, but it is what it is, and that's what we have to do for the speed run. We're going to unequip Byleth's weapon here so that the 2 real heroes of this fight, who you will meet in just a second, are going to kind of go charging past Byleth because she doesn't have a weapon and is therefore not a threat, and they are going to focus on everybody else instead. So those 2 NPC units that are going to come down here and take out our enemies, they are kind of like the true heroes of this fight, doing the things that need to be done. So meanwhile, we're just going to move Byleth like straight up the board here, take out the archer units more aggressively, but most of the other units we will kind of just let them bounce off of us, and they will not be successful in challenging us. Meanwhile, those two are doing our work back here, and we hopefully will time it out. It usually works out pretty well that we will be getting to the commander of this fight who we saw in the prologue battle, about the same time that those two are finishing off all of our units that are not Edelgard. And we removed Lindhart before the battle, so after this, we will only have Edelgard and Lindhart. They actually were almost a little too good there, so I had to move Edelgard away from them for a turn. But then, at this point, we are very buff and can take out the commander Costas there in one swing and end the battle.
Thank
We're going to get a few more social points here at the end of this battle. We can get 2 quick ones by giving these particular answers, which both happen to be on the bottom choices, so it makes it pretty easy to remember. And now we're off to Chapter 3. So Chapter 3, we are going to do one Explore session coming up here at our first opportunity. And we're going to do that because we're going to go ahead and head into the monastery and get another one of the battalions for Edelgard. This is the first chapter where we have access to the battalion shop. And so we are going to complete this quest here for Jaritza, which sort of sends us on an errand to talk to the battalion guildmaster. And then we are going to hire our first battalion for Edelgard. And the battalion that we're going to use has an ability called Stride. And Stride is one of the most important mechanics in the speedrun. Stride doubles your movement range, so we're going to start off just sort of using it to complete certain missions faster, starting in Chapter 4. But as the game goes along, Stride gets more and more broken because we can combine it with other abilities to really sort of push the power level of that one particular mechanic. So now we're going to go ahead and skip to the end of the month here, get right to the battling. We do want to not forget Edelgard's birthday, though. It's another free opportunity for us en route to earn support with her, so I bought her some birthday flowers there. Happy birthday, Edelgard. The Chapter 3 mission is going to be soloed by Byleth again. So we're going to go ahead and just remove our other party members. There are certain battles where you are required to keep Edelgard in the battle, but when we're not required to have her, we typically will remove her, as well as Lindhart, although there are a few battles where Lindhart actually has some utility as well. But Chapter 3, we are just going to kind of take on the world again here. And this is a kill the commander battle, but at the beginning of the battle, because it's a foggy battlefield, we don't know where the commander is. So the first thing we're going to do is come up here, uncover this mage who is the source of the fog, and then we're going to go ahead and take him out, clear the fog from the battlefield, and then sort of make our way up to the commander. So you can see the fog clears. He's up there in that top right corner. He's guarded by 3 units with their battalions of their own, which does make this fight a little bit tricky. I also want to clear out the archers. It keeps my health a little bit higher, as well as getting me a little bit of extra EXP. And you do need to take a couple turns sort of navigating the map anyway. You see me here sort of finding a safe spot for 1 turn before I go up there and engage those 3 units. I could have them come to me and attack me, but it just, for consistency's sake, it works out a lot better if you can get up there, pop that first guy, and then move on to the commander. Now, frequently they will do what's called gambiting you. We haven't really talked about gambits yet. Gambits are the names of those special abilities that the battalions will give you. You can get gambited on that spot. It probably happens to me about 50% of the time. If that happens, just sit tight, pop a couple vulnaries, wait for the stun effect to wear off, and then you can make your way up to the boss. And I always take him out with the bow. It keeps him from doing any particularly nasty counterattacks. Plus, as a little side benefit, for Chapter 4, we're going to want to use the bow, and I will have the bow equipped at the beginning of Chapter 4 as well. Chapter 4, so this month we are going to just skip to the battle, so we're not going to do anything in the monastery at all. Nothing to say regarding social points with Edelgard or anything like that. We'll get back to some of that kind of stuff in Chapter 6. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, we will just skip through the month like this.
I'm getting close.
So the Chapter 4 battle's coming up. This is the first battle where we're going to use that stride ability that we picked up. The one that doubles our movement range. And basically we are just going to use it to get to the commander as quickly as possible. When you play this fight casually, I know for me, the Death Knight sits in the middle of the map and you're kind of just like, oh shoot, I want to stay away from him. He looks nasty. But he will not engage you if you run right past him as long as you don't attack him. So we're going to go ahead and do the stride first turn to kind of give ourselves some distance. We have it mapped out so that we can kind of go, we don't go maximum up, but we go far enough up that we engage one of those first two guys, have the space to get to that second enemy, and then, you know, we kind of just, it's kind of like leapfrogging your way up to the boss here. And then the enemy that we have to kill is sitting up here at the altar. He's no match for us, so we just kind of bop him and he goes down. And that is Chapter 4. Importantly for the story, Chapter 4 is when we get the Sword of the Creator. The Sword of the Creator is basically Byleth's ultimate weapon. It does get an upgrade later on in the run, but for the time being, we're going to use that for quite a while. It's got very good attack power, and in addition to that, it has an attack range of 2, so we can actually attack from range, which is a nice feature that a lot of the other melee weapons, you know, don't really have. I'm going to be trying to kind of blend in some of the basic information as well as some of the more advanced strats, and at the beginning it's pretty straightforward. Later on it's a little bit harder to kind of parse everything out, so I'm trying to sort of build some foundation right now, so that a lot of the conceptual stuff hopefully will be a little bit more well understood later in the run. So just really quickly here, Byleth, or not, excuse me, not Byleth, Edelgard, gained that weight -3 ability, so now I'm going to switch her focus to axe and flying, and then once she sort of masters those skills, she will be able to become a Wyvern Rider during the second half of the game, which will greatly enhance her usefulness and abilities, as well as the key stats that we are going to be looking for in our Edelgard, because as of right now, the first half of the game is basically all Byleth, with a few exceptions. The second half of the game, again with a few exceptions, is all Edelgard. So yeah, it's kind of flip-flopped a little bit that way, and there's a couple specific things we'll talk about as that transition gets closer. But this is the Chapter 5 battle. We do not have access to warp at this point, so we have to kind of go the long way around. The movement is such that we want to kind of have the enemies follow us around the map. to a certain point, and then they're gonna kind of forget about us after that. So I'm sticking close to the edge of this central area for a while. I switched to the Sword of the Crater there so that the mage enemy there died on counterattack from range. Again, the Sword of the Crater has range. And now I'm just going to kind of make a break for it here and, you know, get away from that central area and that big clump of guys, enemies that I had following me. The other benefit to sort of going around the edge like this is there is an enemy back here. We'll see him in just a second. He is a armored knight, and he has an awesome accessory called the accuracy ring that we are going to pick up here in just a moment. We're going to gambit him so that he's kind of like stun locked basically, and then when he dies we get that accuracy ring. Unsurprisingly, that increases our accuracy. It makes a lot of the boss fights throughout the rest of the run a lot safer and a lot less scary than they used to be. Because of how the game calculates hit percentages and things like that, it just makes such a huge difference and really adds to the consistency of the speedrun. So even though it's a little bit annoying to have to kind of take that detour around the map, it is totally worth it to get that accuracy ring. You see me kind of like, I'm sort of treading water here, you know, keeping myself alive as, you know, these enemies chase me. Normally they kind of break off and go for Gilbert, who's the, you know, sort of like the friendly NPC in this fight. But for whatever reason, they're kind of following me. I like to get it down to only 2 archers on my way around, so, and I can't remember if I did this or not, like to take a turn to actually kill an additional archer that's chasing me. But once we sort of, this is the boss here, we take him out once, but then we discover he has a deep dark secret, and that is that he is an evil beastie. So now we're on to phase 2 of this battle. I'm going to start using my steel gauntlets quite a bit starting in this part of the battle now. You'll notice I took out one of the archers, and then the other one just kind of is there, but like I don't have to worry about one archer. Now this particular portion of the fight can go a lot of different ways depending on how Gilbert is doing, how you are doing. You'll notice I actually got gambited here, which is kind of awkward. You see those little like sweat drops coming off of me. So I'm gonna make a break for this healing pad up here, which will help out quite a bit. So you'll see me here just kind of biding my time, getting on that safer spot, and now I'm pretty much safe. The only thing I have to manage now is just like if I want to go for the boss and try to take him out on a particular turn. Generally my rule of thumb is if I can attack them from the pad I will, but if they break that tile, which is a, you know, kind of the boss mechanic, is they have these tiles and then they have shields as well. So if you can break a tile, you can deal full damage, otherwise your damage is mitigated. And then you have to work through their shields as well, and they will refill hit points with each shield that you break. They get a little bit more hit points and stuff usually as well, but that's not always the case. But sometimes you can get a really quick kill on that boss. Sometimes it does take a little bit longer. It depends on if you are able to break their shields. Usually you have to kind of dodge one of their attacks as well. So it's a little tricky. It's one of those things that if you run the game enough, you'll start to recognize like, okay, I can go for the fast kill here, or oh shoot, I need to make for the safety pad because I just need to kind of get through this. And you could tell that time, because I got gambited mainly, basically, I knew I was going to need to make a break for the safety pad because I wasn't going to be able to mount too much offense when I was gambited like that. So that fight's interesting. You usually have to do a lot of improvising there. So that's one of the very skill testing missions, I would say, for sure. But we got through it cleanly. We got our accuracy ring, and now we're on to chapter 6. Chapter 6, we are going to recruit our first additional unit. We're going to recruit Shamir, who is kind of like the archer assassin instructor at the monastery. So we're skipping to the end of the month, so this last day here that we could do the explore, and we're going to go ahead and recruit her, but we're also going to use this as an opportunity to farm some of the items and the support that we need for Edelgard as well. In particular, we're going to grab some owl feathers. I just grabbed the first one right there. I'm also going to tag one more location for later on in the run that I need to be able to fast travel to. And then I am going to do a quick quest up here to get some gift items. This, you can't see him, but Gerald's right there. And the quest is called Lost and Found. We got 3 gifts there for completing that. And now I'm going to go ahead and give those gifts to Edelgard and pick up a few more owl feathers as well. So
Hello.
there she is.
For who? Let's get it. Thank you.
We'll give her these first 3 gifts. We're going to save the owl feathers for later. Gifts will either give 1 or 2 hearts. The owl feathers will give 2, so they're pretty valuable. And now there's 1 owl feather right there that I'm going to grab. And then I'm going to grab another one over here on my way to a character who is sort of the co-MVP of the Chapter 6 mission. As I run into the walls and don't do a particularly good job with my movement. But this is Annette. Annette has an ability called Rally that is going to increase our physical damage output. And we are going to use Annette and Shamir to kind of cheese this upcoming Chapter 6 battle here. I didn't fully recruit Annette, but there's a mechanic called Mission Assistance. And what I did is I grabbed her to be my sort of guest character in this Chapter 6 mission, specifically for that rally mechanic. So the Chapter 6 mission is probably one of my favorite missions in the casual playthrough of this game. It's very elaborate. It's really interesting. There's like teleport tiles and like locked doors, and the whole thing's kind of a maze.
Here goes.
And here in the speedrun, we don't have time for all that, so we're just going to shoot the Death Knight through the wall. The only trick here is keeping Shamir alive, so Lintart's actually going to have a pretty good role to play in that regard. And Byleth's going to just kind of hold everybody off for a couple turns until Shamir has the opportunity to finish the Death Knight off. This is one of the fights where RNG can come into play a little bit. The Death Knight has a very powerful counterattack, and if he crits on Shamir, she will die. So you have 2 ways of resetting RNG. You can either attack with a different ability or attack with a different character, or you can heal, and those things will reset the RNG. And I had to do a quick reset there because I accidentally attacked the wrong character, but once I got that squared away, I was able to finish off the Death Knight there. So yeah, that's a really quick Chapter 6 battle. Again, a really, really cool mission in the casual playthrough of the game, but in the speedrun, we just kind of decimate the Death Knight, and it's kind of not fair to him, honestly. But we've successfully completed the mission. We get a new character as a quote-unquote reward, and that is Flane. Flane is actually going to be pretty useful to us in our Chapter 7 mission. But aside from that, at least in this house's run, we don't use Flane all that much because she kind of turns into an enemy in the second half of the run. But in the Golden Deer and Blue Lions run, she has a pretty vital role to play from this point forward. So, but this is the Byleth and Edelgard show, and everybody else is just kind of window dressing in the Black Eagles run. Alright, so we're coming up on Chapter 7 now, which is the Battle of the Eagle and Lion. In my opinion, for the speedrun, just in terms of sheer randomness and things that can go wrong, the Chapter 7 battle is probably the most challenging in the entire game. And that is because we have to contend with 2 really, really dangerous units in Dedu and Ingrid. and they are both members of the Blue Lion's house. Ingrid at this point is a really tough Pegasus Knight, and Dedu is like a really tough armored knight. So what we want to see happen is one or both of them go down to the Golden Deer forces. However, this doesn't happen all that often, and it's generally very lucky when it does. You don't have any control over the what the game decides to roll for all of these other units. This is actually a 3-army battle, so you have all 3 armies on the battlefield at the same time, and mostly the Golden Deer and Blue Lions are going to fight it out in the southern part of the map, while we sort of control the northern part of the map for a while, and then eventually once things get whittled down, we'll kind of go clean up. But there's like a lot of different ways the first part of the battle can go, and we don't really have any control over that. So sometimes we have to deal with Ingrid and Dedu, sometimes we just have to deal with Ingrid or Dedu, and then very, very rarely there are times where we don't have to deal with either of them, and those are pretty wonderful times. So we're going to start the battle off by kind of just sort of claiming this territory down here as quickly as we can. And there's a very important bush here. The bush that we are kind of navigating around right here at the beginning of the fight is what I refer to as the safety bush. And the safety bush is the single most important tile on this map. We need Byleth to sit in the safety bush and basically just use that for added defense as waves and waves of enemies just kind of come crashing down on us. So there's Ingrid. Thankfully, they sort of separated themselves out a little bit. And while I'm dealing with all these enemies from the safety bush, I'm also going to be using Flame to keep my hit points high. Flame also has a passive ability where if she is standing next to a unit, that unit gets a defense bonus. So she's also good bait. I used her to draw Ignatz in there and then take him out. So yeah, I'm basically just going to continue. Occasionally I will come out of the safety bush. Sometimes it does come back to bite me a little bit, but you're going to spend probably the first 5 or 6 turns in the safety bush just kind of taking on all comers. And when things go wrong, that's what you do. You head back to the safety bush. So... but I got a pretty good pattern this fight. Dedu lost, I believe. So at this point, I kind of just want to keep an eye on the map, make sure nobody sort of sneaks past me here, and start kind of taking out the units, divide and conquer style. So took out Dimitri here. My hit points got a little low, so that didn't quite work out. So now we're going to do a new strategy, which is almost always just return, heal, and head back towards the safety bush. So there we go again. Headed back to the good old safety bush here, and I re-equipped my weapon with range because Dimitri has a ranged weapon, as well as Annette, who's kind of closing in on us with a ranged weapon as well. You'll notice Flame died in this battle. This is one of the few battles. Chapter 1 and Chapter 7 are actually the only battles like this, where if you lose a unit... Oh, and we also have Sylvan trying to be bad here and sneak past me and take out Edelgard, so that's another thing you occasionally have to look out for. This battle is just, like I said, kind of a mess. Like, things go so many different directions, and you kind of just have to react to what the game is doing. Like, Felix is over here. I don't know what Felix is doing over here this time. Like, that never happens, so, like, who knows what's going on. All I know is I didn't have to deal with Dedu, and everybody else kind of was being nice for the most part, so this wasn't too bad. But this is one of the... Getting back to my original... my point before that I was making, this is one of the few battles where if you lose a unit, they will come back to you after the battle. So I will still have Flame after this battle. If I was to lose Lindhart, I would still have Lindhart after this battle. You cannot lose Byleth or Edelgard, but you can sort of squeeze extra utility out of, like, Flame, for example, and I have had times where I've used Lindhart to help heal as well. But you can squeeze some extra utility out of those really low level vulnerable units and let them support you, and that helps out quite a bit, and you know, is a good strategy for that chapter 7 battle. So that wasn't a particularly great chapter 7 in terms of time, but it did go pretty smoothly, just in the sense that I only had to divine pulse and sort of reset that one time when I overextended and had to run back to the safety of the safety bush there. So all in all, not bad. One nice RNG thing that happened is normally you have to go all the way over to the left-hand side, which is where Felix usually likes to hang out. That's why I was so surprised when Felix was kind of up the map there. And then Claude will always hang out basically in that lower right corner. So a lot of times you have to go all the way over to the left and then all the way over to the right. And thankfully I kind of was able to stay more to the middle and then just go take Claude out. So that was a little bit of nice RNG at least. So we got the chapter 8 battle coming up here. I'm also, at this point, a little bit nervous about my Edelgard support, so I actually did a extra seminar there so that I could instruct Edelgard again and pick up some extra hearts here. I was able to get 3, thankfully, so that's sort of my backup that I currently kind of use, is to do an extra seminar, do an extra round of instructing. By the way, I also have to instruct Lindhart there, otherwise he will not learn Warp on time. But because of that, I was able to get the first of the 2 support level ups that I need, so that's just kind of like my safety backup strat for that. I don't think it's optimized to the point that it could be, but I don't like to leave things to chance, especially when I have a good run going. And at this point, my Byleth was pretty beefy. I was making good time, so I just wanted to... I didn't want to risk not getting those support levels and having to scuttle the run because I didn't get Edelgard's proper support levels, so... So that's my chapter 8 backup there to ensure that I get all my support. And now we're on to the chapter 8 battle. There is, by the way, I will just mention, and I'm going to kind of describe what's going on without worrying too much about it, but there is a slightly more optimal way of doing this fight. Not for this fight specifically, but if you handle this fight in a slightly different way, it is better in the long run. Because of the... you'll notice in the upcoming fight, I'm going to use Stride with Edelgard twice. As a result, later on in the run, she's going to actually get to level 2 before the time skip. There is a 1-stride version of this fight that I've kind of learned now that I'll probably be using in the future. And the reason for that is because it keeps Edelgard at level 1 at the time skip, which is much, much better for your stats. Or I shouldn't say much better, but it is better, at least philosophically, if she levels from level 1 at the time skip rather than level 2, so... but anyway, this is a pretty straightforward fight. We're just gonna kind of bum rush the commander here, who is a... We haven't seen him because we haven't been doing anything in the monastery, but he is an NPC from the monastery that's, I guess, kind of like turned to the dark side, so... We're starting to sense that things may not always all be what they seem, so... So that's chapter 8. Pretty straightforward battle. And then these next couple battles are gonna get more and more interesting, I would say. And they're gonna get a little bit more technical from here on out as well, just in terms of either what we have to do, the precision that we have to do to get through the battle, or just specific strategies that we use. So but all will be explained, or I will at least attempt to explain it as best I can. Meanwhile, chapter 9, this is the last month where we will, well, there is actually one more trip to the monastery in chapter 11 for Black Eagles, but for most runs of the other houses, and then this month, this is a very important month. This is the month where we are able to unlock the dancer job. So in order to unlock the dancer job, I'm going to do this quest right here, which is called the White Heron Cup. And then I'm going to go recruit my dancer. In the Black Eagles run, the dancer currently is Sylvan. Sylvan likes to hang out here at the stables. So we're going to go ahead and recruit him. He will join our party, or our house, as long as we are female Byleth. That's why for Black Eagles we have to be female Byleth, otherwise he won't join our party. And so he joins our party, and then we make him our dancer to be. And now we're going to come here and we're going to gift bomb Edelgard now that we have that C rank support, so that we can get up to C+, hopefully. And then that's the end of the month. Another really subtle thing that I forgot to mention, by the way, is when you get the C support rank cutscene with Edelgard, you actually have to accept it, go into it, and then skip it, because you will get 2 points of support for doing that. If it says, would you like to go to a visit for Edelgard, and you say no, you will not get the support. So you have to go into the cutscene and then skip it. And then after we get done gift bombing her there, we get the C+ rank. So we know that our run is good now, and we're live for when the time skip, or the story developments and stuff happen in chapter 11. So not too far off. We're in chapter 9 right now. And this is the famous dance comp, so I will let you all enjoy the fine dancing of Sylvan, Mercedes, and Claude, I believe. Sylvan will always win the dance comp. He has the minimum required charm in order to do so. He's such a heartthrob. He just wows the judges every time. There's a pretty decent cutscene chunk here before the chapter 9 battle. This is a pretty significant month in the story for any casual playthrough, because this is where you kind of like find out who you have the hots for and who has the hots for you, based on all of the decisions that you've been making through 9 months of the game. So, but we don't really care about any of that. We don't have time for love and romance. We're just here to smash some monsters, and so that is what the chapter 9 battle is. We're going to be facing off against basically four of the enemies that we fought in chapter 5, the Black Beasts, except they're sort of slightly weaker versions. At least in terms of like shield and things like that. They only have one shield. So we got some setup here. We're going to switch Sylvan to our dancer job. And then we are going to equip Flane with a battalion that gives the ability Onslaught. And then we're going to move a couple units on the map there so that they can get to their spots. Edelgard's going to stride everybody. That's kind of her job for the run. And then we're going to do 2 gambits. The first is Onslaught, that knocks the enemy back here and gives Byleth kind of like a space to get in there and fight. And then Shamir is going to come over here and gambit this monster from the bush. That's going to kind of draw his attention. Byleth is going to come up here, take out this first beast. Dance, by the way, gives you another round, so we're going to use it to get another attack here. I actually had to switch to gauntlets in order to kill that beast, which is common. The steel gauntlets at this point are actually better DPS than the Sword of the Creator in most situations. And then we're going to use warp for the first time, and this is just a very small thing. I actually did some manipulation of Byleth's inventory there so that Byleth had the Sword of the Creator equipped again. And then the second beast is going to kind of charge you, run right into the Sword of the Creator, and break its first tile, all in its own turn. So now I'm going to get 2 attack rounds again with Byleth plus Dance. So that's going to take out the second beast. Sometimes you want to give a safety heal there because that round can get a little dicey afterwards. Shamir and Geralt are pretty good about taking care of that one down there. So that just leaves one left. And you do have to be a little bit careful with this one. If you get Lindhart too close in particular, like if he takes a fireball to the face, he is not going to survive usually. One thing that helps is try to move the way it faces around, so if you do have to deal with a counterattack, it doesn't take out all your other units here. So you'll see he's kind of facing south. That way he's not gonna... Well, he did actually hit Sylvan, but really you don't want to lose Lindhart there. But usually, as long as you don't die on that particular round of counterattack, you're usually in pretty good shape, and we were able to finish it off, so... That battle's pretty consistent now. It can go wrong dealing with that last beast, especially if Byleth's strength is low. Just kind of, if you get into a situation like that, just kind of like tread water. Try to stay in the bushes, keep your support units away so that they don't accidentally die in the process. Keep Byleth alive and wait for Geralt to show up and help take out those shields so that you can quickly take it down. But if you have a low strength Byleth, that fight can get a little bit dicey. But if you have a functional Byleth, and just the ability to sort of stay out of the way of those nastier attacks, you're always going to be pretty quick and efficient in that fight. Speaking of fights that are not quick and efficient, this next fight coming up with the Chapter 10 battle with Kronia, which in my opinion is the single most, I won't say difficult because the strat itself is easy, but in terms of RNG and kind of getting stonewalled by the game, this is probably the single most difficult fight in the game that way. So in particular for the Black Eagles, there are a couple things that we don't have in our toolkit that they do have in the other routes. So for Black Eagles in particular, this fight can be a little bit maddening. If you just can't get the hits in on Kronia. So there's a couple strats that I'll kind of talk about. There's a 1-turn strat and a 2-turn strat. And the ability for you to do the 1-turn strat is wholly dependent on either having a Byleth with enough strength to take out Kronia in one shot or getting a lucky crit. So you can't really count on it. Even if you have the best Byleth in the world, a lot of times you can't even take her out without a crit. So we have to use the first turn to kind of set up our units here. And now we're going to use that stride. And we're good to go attack.
I owe you.
So head up here, dance with Sylvan. Don't let anybody else go into that area because Sylvan is the only one that's going to be able to survive any kind of counterattack.
Stay focused.
I always try with the steel gauntlets first because in terms of raw damage, that's usually the best option. And then my second go-to is the Ruptured Heaven combat art, which did take her out in this case. So because I was able to take her out in 1 turn, I can do the fast strat now. And that's because stride will not expire on this boss, or on my units. I still have stride. So all I need to do, aside from kind of keeping my characters safe, is just move and dance Byleth. You'll want to go up here, unequip your sword, because those enemies will actually drop a bunch of crap that you don't need, and it just sort of wastes time. And then move your other characters, or at least move Lindhart into the bush here. Apparently I should have moved Flame as well. But move your other characters to safety down there. Sylvan will be able to survive a turn, but your other characters have less of a chance to do so. Plus Flame gives that defense bonus as well. And then from there you can just come on up here and attack the boss with your ranged sword, which by the way got a power up during that cutscene, so it's pretty good now. But if you can do that fight in one cycle like that, where stride doesn't wear off, it's pretty good. If you just do not have a way of getting through Cronia in one attack, what you want to do, unequip your weapon, gambit, and then on the second phase, you should be able to finish her off with the gauntlets, because you get 4 chances to hit. So that's kind of like the slower strategy. And then typically after that, you'll be able to move Byleth up the map kind of around the slow way. There are occasionally circumstances, if Lindhart somehow has 12 magic by that point, you can warp Byleth up onto the platform where the boss is. And that is the fastest, safest strat, but most of the time Lindhart does not have the 12 magic needed to do that warp, because you have to have a range of 3. And the range of warp is magic divided by 4, so you have to have 12 magic.
It's all
Anyway, that was a lot of explaining, but Chapter 10 is really, really a difficult, very volatile fight. So we're in Chapter 11 now. I skipped to the week before the end of the month because we have to do this mission, so to speak, with Edelgard, where because we have the C+ support, she is going to take us back to the Empire to be crowned the Emperor in secret. So we have to go with her, and then do this cutscene that's coming up here. One really quick thing that I just learned, it's not super recently, but fairly recently. If you do have cutscenes like this, the way you spam through the text that quickly is to mash the A and B button at the same time. So that's the only way I have found consistently to get through the text fields that fast. If you just hit the A button or just hit the B button, it doesn't go that fast, but for whatever reason, if you spam the A and the B button together, that's when you can get those super fast text box clears. And that's a really good example of that. It does speed it up quite a bit. The dance competition cutscene as well is another one where you can really get through it fast doing that. All right, so for the Chapter 11 battle, we actually do not have Edelgard. We do need the stride ability, though, so we're going to equip stride onto Shamir. Shamir is actually kind of done with her combat duties now. She's going to be our stride captain for the rest of the run from here on out. So the first thing I'm going to do is equip that stride battalion. Do a little bit of mapping here. Just change those 2 characters up. Essentially, this is going to be the first of a few battles where I use all 3 of these really great
Stay focused.
abilities in tandem. So we've got stride to increase our movement tiles. We've got dance to give ourselves extra turns, and then we've got warp, which will also move us tiles, but it'll also get us over terrain, like walls and platforms and things like that. So this is, because of the way the Chapter 10 battle went, this is actually the first battle where these are all going to kind of come together at once. So I've sort of arranged those 3 key characters in a line right there. And then we're going to kind of put it all together here. So stride, move Byleth up the map, dance Byleth so Byleth has another available turn. And then we're going to warp. And in this case, we're going to warp specifically to get over this platform right here. So Lindhart is going to warp Byleth up onto the platform, bypassing those other really nasty enemies, and we're just going to take out Edelgard here. Don't worry, we are fighting Edelgard just in this one fight, but she is going to be back on our side again here in just a moment. We just have to do a little bit of cleanup here. I actually mismenued there. I should not have put the accuracy ring in the convoy. So that was a mistake that I believe I had to clean up before the upcoming battle. So don't do that. That was a mistake. But just goes to show inventory management, the true enemy of any speedrunner. So, or RPG speedrunner at least. We choose to protect Edelgard. That sets us on the Crimson Flower path for the second half of the run, and we are good to go now. This is like a super fast in between here because we're sort of thrown out of the school, but we're gonna take it back. So we're just gonna rush right into this battle. This is a very scripted fight, by the way, and a lot of the movement that we do, the tiles that we stand on and things like that, are specifically designed to keep the heat off of Edelgard, because at this point I believe my Edelgard is still level 2, and there are a lot of really scary high-level enemies on this battlefield, and if any of them catch Edelgard, she is basically just toast. So, and she has to survive this fight. We can't take her out. And we can't really sit back and protect her either because that won't work. So this is me fixing that miss menu that I did at the end of the last fight, and now we're ready to go. We're gonna get rid of everybody else. They're just gonna get in the way and probably die. But yeah, we need to get to work here. So Edelgard is gonna hide in this bush for the entire fight, and Byleth is just gonna take on the world here. We're gonna move up here, let all these guards come and attack us. If your Byleth is kind of weak at this point, this fight also gets to be a little bit problematic, but it still should be okay. You've got a little bit of leeway in terms of, like, if you have a bad round, you can kind of clean up for 1 or 2 rounds afterwards. But I believe it's after turn 8 or 9. Rhea is going to appear on the battlefield, and we have to be at a particular spot before then. So essentially we're just kind of cleaning up all of these enemies in the middle so they don't go after Edelgard. Occasionally Jariza will like show up and be super helpful. You'll notice here I'm also there's a Pegasus Knight behind me. I'm making sure it aggroes me and doesn't go towards Edelgard there. So that was actually, I was actually looking at that line that was coming in and making sure that it was following me. I want all of these enemies to attack me. I don't want them to be going anywhere near Edelgard. So, and then I have this door key that's just been kind of sitting in my inventory since chapter 6, and I'm going to use that to drop the drawbridge. And because I spent so much time cleaning up the middle of the map, this is all clear to me now. I'm just going to rush up here. If I time it right, Rhea should appear the turn after I get to that tile, which is perfect. She spawns a bunch of other enemies, but I can just end the fight by bonking her with my big glowing sword. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, and that is chapter 12. After this battle, we get the time skip in the Black Eagles route, so everyone's going to get all growed up here. We advance 5 years into the future, and things have changed in 5 years. For sure. For whatever reason, the second half of the Black Eagles route is significantly shorter than either the Blue Lions or the Golden Deer, so that's why the times are usually quite a bit shorter as well. It's, I want to say 4 fewer missions, but it's either 4 or 5 fewer missions than either the Golden Deer or the Blue Lions, which both have 22 chapters. I want to say Black Eagles has 18. So, pretty short, but some of the missions are pretty scary and very, very challenging to get through. So a lot of work has gone into the routing and the way that those missions get completed. Anyway, we have reunited with all of our former students, and the first thing that we are going to do is go take out a base. But first, we always have to do, regardless of what house you're running, there's usually a big menuing sequence that goes into this part because all of your units have just changed. They've all gone from level 1 or 2 to level 20, so they've got a lot of stats. A lot of new things have changed. I recertified Edelgard as a Wyvern Rider and Lindhart as a Bishop. The Lindhart recertification is kind of a safety measure. You can do it later on, but he does have to have a certain, I believe he has to have 16 magic for one of the later fights, and you're guaranteed to get it if you certified a bishop. But if a lot of times he'll just naturally have it on his own, so you do have an opportunity before you need to know for sure to like check and make sure that he has that required 16 magic. So I don't have to do it there, but I was being safe, and I just wanted to take care of it. I also sold my tea leaves, which is a personal preference. I don't want to accidentally click into a tea party on one of the birthdays. So I personally choose to sell the tea, but a lot of people don't. It's kind of like a personal preference thing. And now we're going to remove some abilities from Byleth and Edelgard. We're going to get their inventories in shape here. So Edelgard is only going to have the Amir and the accuracy ring, and then we've got the energy drop that we got back in chapter 9 that's going to give +2 strength, and Edelgard is going to use that. And now we're going to buy some weapons. Edelgard is going to get a silver axe, a brave axe, and a training axe. The training axe is because of the accuracy bonus on the training axe, which we're going to only use in this chapter 13 battle. And then we're going to buy Jaritza a really nice sword. We're going to buy elixirs for Byleth and Edelgard. And then another safety measure that I like to do is for the chapter 17 battle, I like to have pure water for Lindhart, because he likes to die in chapter 17. And that's not okay with me. So, and a new battalion for Jaritza. So a lot going on here. This particular fight doesn't really utilize any of these things. We're just going to use our new dragon friend to fly over everybody here with Edelgard and take out the commander. Use the training axe because it has the highest accuracy, but with the accuracy ring, it's not as important, I would say, at this point. So that's a turn 1 kill. We're going to get I think maybe just a couple of those in the Black Eagles. In some of the other houses, you end up racking up a fair number of turn 1 kills in the second half of the game, so... Now we're on to chapter 14. Chapter 14 is going to be our rematch with Claude. One of the things that we need to talk about, this is kind of a good explainer battle for Edelgard's sort of, they get like a relic weapon, each of the 3 lords do in the second half of the game. Edelgard's is called Amir, and Amir comes with a ridiculously overpowered combat art called Raging Storm. And Raging Storm is overpowered because when you use Raging Storm, you get an extra turn afterwards. So the balancing mechanic that the game put in to sort of counteract that is requiring 4 durability for each Raging Storm, and then the weapon only has 20 durability. We're going to use all 20 charges, and then we're going to repair it before the final battle, and we're going to use 20 again. So
I see how this.
we're going to get a lot of mileage out of that Amir and that Raging Storm combat art starting in this battle here. But you can't just sort of use them willy-nilly. You have to use them in very specific moments during the routing. Otherwise, the strats will basically fall apart because a lot of your characters just do not have the durability to survive a couple extra turns in open combat. So everything's routed very carefully and very specifically with that in mind. So, but this is the chapter 14 battle. Just do a little bit of setup here, but this is going to be, looks like a big map. We're gonna cover it in one turn here. So stride, warp Edelgard up. Just warp her up. It doesn't matter. Just warp her up a couple tiles. You don't have to go nuts about it. And then she is going to fly over here and actually wait.
What's the plan?
And then you'll dance her. She's going to use Raging Storm here. And then because of the Canto ability, which flyers and cavalry units have, she can do a full round of movement and then also another attack. Or her other turn that she got from the Raging Storm. So, unfortunately, I did not take Claude out in one swing, which is normally what happens. So I'm going to do a quick RNG reset here. That's pretty uncommon with Brave Axe, so I'm assuming it's just like I missed with probably 2 of my swings. So also she's not getting the speed, the extra attacks from speed, so she probably only just had 1 attack. She got 1 of her 2 attacks to land, so bad luck, but we got that reset with a Divine Pulse and an RNG reset to get through it, so. Chapter 15 is a little bit dicey sometimes. It usually goes well enough if you get with enough RNG resetting, you can usually get through it. But the problem we have with some of these battles is we just don't have a lot of units to reset the RNG with if things are not agreeing. But I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it does help to have like as beefy of an Edelgard as you can have at this point, which we don't really get to kill a lot of extra enemies in this route, so she doesn't get a ton of extra levels like you do in the other house runs, where by this point you've probably already tacked on like 7 or 8 levels to your Edelgard, or to your hero after the time skip. I think she's still sitting at like level 22 or 23, so she's gonna gain some more in this battle, but it's just it can be a little dicey. So but you got to just kind of trust that it'll work out eventually, and stick to the script. It's pretty flawless when it works, and it's pretty safe. So we're coming up on the battle here. We're actually defending the monastery, for those who are interested in the lores. And it is a kill the commander battle. It's a pretty big map, but we're going to just kind of fly around with that Raging Storm, dance, and stride again. So I need to move Sylvan up there so that he can help out. And now, you know, this is how you're going to do the setup. You're going to stride, move Edelgard onto that barrier.
What's the plan?
Dance. And then Edelgard is going to come down here, take out this first commander with a Raging Storm. Never have any problems with that one. And then on her second turn, come down here. You will not be able to one-shot Seteth unless you get very, very lucky. So Raging Storm once. Stay put. And then attack with Silver Axe. Silver Axe will give you the best defense. And we're going to want defense for this next part. Now, I got very lucky. I still have my full hit points after that. So generally when that happens, I'm feeling pretty good. You have to fly to that specific spot that's 2 to the right of the gate. And then come over here and take out Alois with the Brave Axe. The reason you have to fly to that specific spot is because if you go to, there's a certain radius. I don't know exactly which spots it is and which spots it isn't. But if you go to the wrong spot, Flane will appear, and then you have to also take out Flane along with Alois, which you pretty much can't do in one turn without Raging Storms. And we need our other 2 Raging Storms for the Chapter 17 battle that is looming. So you need to have 2 Raging Storms still in the bank after that fight. So you use 1 in Chapter 14, 2 in Chapter 15, and then 2 in Chapter 17. And then you can recharge for the final battle and repair. So this is the Chapter 16 battle. It's kind of tricky and technical, but it's not nearly as scary as the previous battle or the chapter 17 battle are. If you stick to the script, it should always go fine. It is pretty precise just in terms of what you have to do during the battle, but it's like it's pretty rare that you'll die unless Byleth gets like critical hit or something like that. So you have pretty good ways of managing it safely. And the reason this battle is so technical and precise is not only do we have to win the battle, but we also have to cripple a mech monster that will give us the 4 Agarthium that we need to repair Amir before the final battle. So we actually have a secret objective in a way, in addition to taking out the 2 commanders that are going to be on the battlefield. So we're loading into the battle here. And I have to do a decent amount of pre-menu here before we get going. Just kind of move my enemies around. Edelgard decided she didn't want to ride a dragon anymore, so we need to fix that because she looks better on a dragon, as do all of us. And now we'll go ahead and start the fight.
Let's clean up.
Pretty typical start, so stride. But then we need to kind of start clearing the middle right away here. Byleth has a gambit that we have not used so far. We're going to use that to take out these 3, sort of, not take out is the wrong word, but we're going to kind of incapacitate these 3 units. Edelgard is going to come and take out this first commander. There's actually 5 commanders, I forgot. I thought there was 2, but that's just because there's 2 that you have to kill at the end. There's actually 5 commanders. So there's 1. Sylvan is going to dance her so she can go take care of the second one. He's old and likes to die a lot. We also get a fresh Brave Axe that I'm going to keep in my inventory. Thank you, Brave Axe.
Understood.
Jaritza's going to do a thing. We haven't talked about Jaritza at all yet, but he's going to kill that guy. And then move your Linthart up. Linthart is going to need to do some warping here in just a few minutes. And turn 2, our main objective is we need to take out Felix here. Felix has a special mechanic where like he can basically just dodge attacks even though it doesn't look like he can dodge attacks when you queue up your hit. So generally what you want to do is get a good chunk of him with Byleth and then try to take him out with
What's the plan?
Jaritza. You do have kind of like a free turn here if you need like extra swings because you don't need to do anything with Byleth this turn other than take him out. So that was quite a bit of work just to get rid of him, but you do have to do that this turn. Between Byleth and Jaritza, it's usually fine. And then I'm kind of just managing the rest of my team. They're moving them up the board. I dropped a heal on Byleth because she has got a lot of work to do on this turn because we're going to hurl Byleth over this wall with Warp. And then that is the enemy that we need to break rocks for. So I'm going to use I was going to use my Gambit first. Byleth actually missed with the Gambit, so I'm going to have to do an RNG reset here in just a second. I'm going to use Jaritza to do that because he can come over here and attack these guys.
What's my strategy?
And then we'll try again with the Gambit. Success. Took out the side enemy. Broke the first tile. In order to get the Agarthium rocks, you have to break all 4 tiles on that boss at the same time. So basically the way it works is 1 from the Gambit, 2 from a counterattack, and then Shamir is going to take care of 3 and 4 with her combat art.
What's the plan?
There's 1, and then dance, and there's 2, and we get our Agarthium. And now we just have to take out these commanders. Sublime Heaven here, you're probably going to need to use it because Byleth was not in great shape there. So that worked. And then Edelgard will finish off Ingrid here. And that is going to be the Chapter 16 battle. Which again, pretty precise, but not really scary. Like there's not a lot of stuff that can happen there that you can't just kind of roll it back with Divine Pulse and recover from. Whereas Chapter 17, when things start going wrong, every unit has a role to play every turn, so you basically you really only have like 1 or 2 ways to reset the RNG. And if those don't agree, then you kind of just can't do it, and you have to like reload the battle and start over again, which is frustrating, but it does happen. It's a pretty short battle, so it's not a huge time loss if you have to do that, but obviously if you're doing like a PB attempt or something, you want it to go right the first time, so.
Let me. Huh.
Another.
I see how.
I'm finding.
I must.
Okay, so we're all done with our time in the monastery, or the on the calendar. We don't have to do any more calendar. 2 battles to go. Chapter 17, like I said, very scary. We're going to... Basically everything in this battle is precise, and if you don't do it in the precise way, the enemies will not do the things that you need them to do, and it won't go the way that it optimally goes. So if everything goes well, it is only a 3-turn battle, but a lot has to go right. So so for the first turn here, we're gonna stride with Shamir. And then we're going to start moving our units into place. Dritz is going to go stand there and get off his horse. He doesn't have anything to do the first turn. Byleth is going to move up here. Also doesn't have anything to do the first turn. Lindhard is going to move to that spot. It's a very important spot that he stands on. And I like to use Pure Water. That is like my backup strat for this fight, because Lindhard has to survive an attack from an enemy, and sometimes he struggles to do that. Dance, move up here, use Axe of Zoltan plus a combat art so that Edelgard doesn't get counterattacked at all. You want her to have full health. And then when you take out that first commander, Rhea will appear. Byleth, on this turn 2, you have to move to that specific spot. Otherwise, the other commander will not come down and attack. Edelgard is going to get in here. That was a Raging Axe, by the way. I actually messed up afterwards, and I had to go back and redo it because you have to canto afterwards, and I just like missed it for some reason. And then I like used the wrong attack because I guess I was flustered. So that's also, it just happens, you know, stuff happens when you're feeling good about how your run's going. So I had to do a couple Divine Pulses just to kind of not screw stuff up. But you know what? There's a lot that goes into this run, so it happens. So there's Raging Storm. If you canto up, you can get up to this enemy. Again, Raging Storm, because I need to keep going here. That was the last Amir attack. And now there's Dimitri. We're going to take him out with Brave Axe. This was a pretty good Edelgard, by the way. My strength got to be pretty nice there. So, and then, all right, so this series of movements is also pretty precise. So stride,
Understood.
move Jaritza over 1, up 1, dance him from below, and then Lindhard has to warp him onto that middle island to deal with the dew. If Lindhard doesn't have, this is the spot where if Lindhard doesn't have 16 magic, he will not be able to get Jaritza far enough to reach Dedu. So you if you don't have it, just cert as bishop and you'll get it, but that's why I preemptively certified as bishop earlier. So Jurica comes up here, uses his gambit, and now it's just counterattacks. Dadu should counterattack into Jurica and die, and the other scary one is we really need Mercedes to come down here and attack into Byleth and die, which is not a sure thing. And thankfully all that happened. Oh, turn 2. Sorry. I said turn 3, but that's kind of because people die on the counterattack there. But yeah, so if everything goes right, that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. The pure water for safety was to keep Lindhard alive so that he could do that warp on Jurica. The only character you actually have to have finished that fight in order to complete the game, and actually you don't even need to have him survive. I have done it without him. It was pretty dicey, but like I guess it's better than resetting the battle, is Sylvan, because you can always, for the final battle that's coming up here, you only really need Stride and Dance. And you could always reassign the Stride battalion to a different unit if, like, let's say Shamir died for some reason, which is very unlikely. But, like, if Lindhard dies, that's okay. Like, you don't need Lindhard in the final battle. You need Stride and ideally Dance for the optimal strats, but you can honestly make it work without. So, like, I've had to finish the game without Dance before, and it just takes longer, but it's still doable, so... okay, so final battle time. We're going to replenish our battalions. We're going to repair Amir with that Agarthium that we got in chapter 16. And then we're going to move our Stride over here. And this battle's pretty straightforward. So it is all Edelgard. We're going to Stride, move to this very specific spot, wait.
What's my strategy?
What's the plan?
Dance with... Sylvan, and then use our first Raging Axe or Raging Storm here.
Never doubted.
I think I've said Raging Axe a few times. It's Raging Storm. Kanto max up, and then hi, Immaculate One. We are ready for the final fight.
So it's
okay, and now we're gonna kind of unload the clip. 4 more Raging Storms into the side of this very cranky old dragon. So that's what I'm doing right now. You want to see those shields disappearing. It's very, very unlikely that you will be able to kill on the first turn. It can conceivably happen, but it's pretty tough. Once Amir breaks, switch to Brave Axe and attack with the Brave Axe. Kanto up onto that spot. It's a little bit safer. Pass the turn. Bye, Sylvan. Thank you for your service. And then 1 more Brave Axe usually will take care of Big Bad Immaculate One here. And once the screen fades to black after the stage complete scene, that is time. So I hope that commentary helped. I know there's been a lot of questions and people wanting to know more about the speedrun. It's really, really tough to kind of explain everything that's going on when it's going on, but I really do try to do my best just because it's a really interesting game. The mechanics and the strategies that we use in the speedrun are really advanced, very cool, and I like to talk about them. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about them in this video. I hope to make more tutorial videos in the future, and that is definitely something I want to do in the future as I continue to speedrun and get better and learn more about this fantastic game. Maybe we'll find some new strats along the way as well. But it's a great game. The speedruns are very technical, precise, and challenging, but they're also very much within the grasp of anyone who can play the game casually. You just have to put in the time and effort and practice to get good and memorize all of the things that you need to do to get through the run. So I think it is a really good game for someone who is relatively new to speedrunning. Maybe you like this kind of game or you like RPGs. And I know for me it checked a lot of those boxes. I was just also a huge fan of the game casually as well. And I think all of those things really made a difference for me kind of getting into speedrunning it. And I'm really appreciative of all the folks who have done a lot of hard work to get the speedrun routing and the strategies and the techniques to the point that they're at, so that somebody like me can kind of learn everything, figure out what the heck is going on, and then, you know, kind of master it myself. It's a pretty cool feeling. So I also got to, you know, I've gotten the opportunity to kind of develop some of my own backup and safety strats as well, like the pure water on Lindhart in chapter 17, which I would personally not do any other way at this point, whether it was a PB attempt or a marathon run. So just little things like that that I feel are improvements. They might be kind of like less optimal for like PB type stuff, but I think that it's really good for just the routing of the game in general, because nobody likes to lose a run, you know, like an hour, 20 minutes in, just because some monster wanted to get a crit. So anyway, that is it for me. Thank you everybody for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.